Some secrets are so heavy that you bury them deep in your heart, knowing that if the world ever discovered them, storms would rise. My story begins with such a secret. I bought a house in complete silence, without telling my family, without even hinting at it. It was the result of years of sweat, sacrifice, and endless nights of work. Quietly, I went through all the paperwork, signed the registry, and stood inside those walls, resting my hand on the paint, breathing in the scent of fresh wood and plaster. That house was more than just bricks and cement to me. It was a dream I had carved out of my own blood and toil. I used to imagine the day I would surprise my wife and sons, opening the doors to them and saying, "This is ours. This is where our future begins." But life never moves according to our plans. The very secret I had held closest to my chest, the very treasure I thought would bring joy to my family, was the same house my own daughter-in-law was plotting to take. Not for us, not for my son, but for her own family. The day I discovered the truth, I felt as though the ground had been ripped out from beneath my feet. My chest tightened as if a blade had been driven straight into my heart. That young woman, the same daughter-in-law I had embraced as my own daughter, whom I had given love, respect, and a place of honor in my home, was conspiring behind my back. She wanted to claim my house, the house of my dreams, for her parents. It wasn't just betrayal, it was a robbery of my life's work. I didn't know what hurt more, the exposure of my long-kept secret or the realization that someone from my own family circle had turned against me. And that's where this story begins, at the moment my test of patience and revenge truly started. Let me tell you why this house meant everything to me. For decades, I worked at the factory, 12-hour shifts under the choking smoke of machines. My clothes were always soaked with sweat, my shoes coated with dust and oil, and my hands covered in cuts and scars that never fully healed. Every time I brought my tired body home, the laughter of my children washed away my exhaustion, and my wife's comforting words gave me strength to wake up and do it all again the next day. Still, deep inside, I carried one burning desire: to have a home of my own. Not a rented apartment with nosy neighbors or the judgmental stares of relatives, but a house where peace belonged only to us. For that dream, I cut down on every personal need. I gave up hobbies, wore old clothes, skipped gatherings, and even delayed fulfilling some of my children's small wishes. Every extra penny was tucked away, saved carefully like drops of water in a desert. Little by little, that money grew, and so did my hope. Finally, the day arrived when I held the keys of my secret house in my hands. I didn't tell anyone. I wanted it to be the biggest surprise of my life. Sometimes, on my way back from work, I would quietly visit the house, walk through the empty rooms, and imagine the furniture, the curtains, the laughter that would one day fill the space. I touched the walls as if they were alive, whispering to them, "One day my family will call you home." But fate has its own cruel timing. The first sign of trouble came in the form of a careless whisper I overheard. My daughter-in-law, Emily, was on the phone in the kitchen. She didn't notice me standing near the hallway. Her voice was hushed, but I caught every word. "Yes, Mom. Don't worry. That house will be ours. Father-in-law doesn't talk much, but I know he has it. We'll make sure you and Dad move in there soon." The words hit me like thunder. My hands shook, and I felt my vision blur. I stepped back silently, pretending I hadn't heard anything, but inside my soul was screaming. How did she know about the house? And more importantly, how could she dare to plan to take it for her own parents? That night I couldn't sleep. My wife asked me what was wrong, but I kept quiet. I couldn't tell her. Not yet. I had to be sure. I had to uncover how deep this betrayal went. Over the next few weeks, I watched Emily closely. Her behavior confirmed my fears. She often brought up conversations about family support and how her parents deserved a better life. She dropped hints about moving them closer, even suggesting that they could live in a bigger place someday. Every word she spoke was a blade twisting deeper into my chest. My son, blinded by love for his wife, nodded along with whatever she said, never realizing what game she was playing. I felt cornered, but I wasn't weak. I had built my life from nothing, and I wasn't going to let a manipulative plan destroy it. That's when I decided I wouldn't confront her immediately. No. I would watch, wait, and then strike back with a revenge so powerful that she would never dare to play with me or my dreams again. And so, the stage of my silent war was set. I didn't reveal anything to Emily right away. Instead, I wore the mask of a quiet, aging father-in-law, pretending I was too tired, too busy, too oblivious to notice the small games she was playing. Inside, though, I was sharper than ever. I was calculating, I was planning, and most importantly, I was patient. For weeks, Emily believed she had the upper hand. I would often find her sneaking off to phone her mother, whispering about how the house was almost theirs. I even overheard her once promising that she'd convince my son to move in with them. She thought she was clever, that her tricks would go unnoticed. But every time I caught a glimpse of her ambition, my resolve to destroy her little scheme grew stronger. I started gathering evidence quietly. I left a recorder in the living room one evening when Emily was visiting with her parents. They thought I had gone out, but I was upstairs, listening. Her father asked cautiously, "Are you sure your father-in-law will give up the house?" And Emily, with confidence that stung me to my core, answered, "Don't worry, Dad. He's soft. He'll do anything for family peace. He won't say no if we push him the right way. Soon, you'll both be living comfortably." That was the moment I stopped feeling hurt and started feeling dangerous. This wasn't just ambition, it was arrogance. They didn't see me as a man who had worked his whole life for this dream. They saw me as a weak old fool, ready to be manipulated. And nothing fuels revenge more than being underestimated. I made my move slowly. First, I began to act as if I was considering Emily's suggestion. At dinner, I casually mentioned, "Maybe it wouldn't be so bad to have your parents closer." Her eyes lit up with victory, and I almost laughed at how easily she fell into the trap. She leaned in, speaking sweetly. "That would be wonderful, Dad. We could all live like one big family." My son, blinded by her charm, smiled and agreed without a second thought. But while they were busy celebrating what they thought was a victory, I was tightening the ropes. Quietly, I went to my lawyer and updated the house deed. Not only was the property under my name, but I also added legal restrictions, ensuring it could never be transferred without my explicit consent. More importantly, I drafted a will that sealed the house for my grandchildren, skipping over both Emily and her parents entirely. That house, the fruit of my blood and sweat, would never fall into her greedy hands. Once the paperwork was in place, I set the stage for the reveal. I invited Emily's parents over one Sunday afternoon, making it seem casual, almost like a family get-together. The living room was filled with polite conversation, laughter, and the clinking of teacups. Emily was glowing with pride, certain that I was about to hand over the keys to them. I could almost see her rehearsing the triumphant story she'd later share with her friends. When the time felt right, I stood up and cleared my throat. The room fell silent. All eyes turned to me. "I want to talk about the house," I said slowly, watching Emily's face light up as though her victory was sealed. She placed her hand over her mother's, giving it a reassuring squeeze. My son looked at me with curiosity, waiting for me to continue. I let the silence stretch, building the tension until the air itself felt heavy. Then I spoke. "Yes, it's true. I bought a house. I kept it a secret because I wanted it to be a surprise for my family. For years, I dreamed of giving my children a place where they could feel secure, where my grandchildren would laugh and grow. That house was supposed to be a symbol of my love and hard work." Emily's smile widened, and her parents exchanged hopeful glances. But then I dropped the hammer. "Unfortunately, I've recently discovered that someone in this very room was plotting to take that house away from me. Not for my son, not for my grandchildren, but for themselves. Imagine my pain when I learned that my own daughter-in-law was planning to hand over my dream to her parents." The room froze. Emily's face turned pale, her smile collapsing into shock. Her parents shifted uncomfortably, unable to meet my eyes. My son stared at her, disbelief written all over his face. I pulled out the recorder and played back her words. Her own voice filled the room, loud and undeniable. "Yes, Mom. Don't worry. That house will be ours." The sound cut through the silence like a blade. Tears welled in my son's eyes as he turned to his wife. "Emily, is this true?" he whispered. She stammered, "No, it's not what it sounds like. I was just trying to—" But I didn't let her finish. My voice was sharp, unshakable. "I don't want excuses. I trusted you like my own daughter, and you betrayed me. But let me make something very clear. This house is not yours, and it will never be yours. I've secured it legally for my grandchildren. You cannot touch it, not now, not ever." The weight of my words crashed down on her like thunder. Emily broke down, her carefully crafted facade shattering. Her parents, humiliated, sat in silence, unable to defend themselves. For the first time in weeks, I felt my chest lighten. The house was safe, my dream preserved. But more importantly, the mask was gone. Emily could no longer play her games in the shadows. She had been exposed in front of everyone. My son was heartbroken, but he finally saw the truth. In the days that followed, he confronted Emily again and again, demanding honesty, demanding loyalty. She tried to mend her image, but trust once broken is not easily repaired. The cracks in their marriage widened, and she learned the hardest lesson of her life. When you betray the very foundation of a family, you don't just lose respect. You lose everything. As for me, I didn't celebrate my victory with noise or pride. I simply went back to the house one quiet evening, turned the key, and stepped inside. The walls welcomed me like old friends. I walked through every room, my heart steady and calm. I had fought a silent war and won. Revenge doesn't always come with shouting or fury. Sometimes it comes with patience, with strategy, with the quiet satisfaction of knowing you've protected what's yours. Emily thought she could outsmart me. She thought I was too weak, too soft, too old to fight back. But she forgot one simple truth. A man who builds his life with his own hands never lets anyone take it away. And so, my secret house remained mine. Not hers, not her parents. Mine. And one day, my grandchildren's. That was my revenge.